All right, so I have this helpful brush now designed, but I don't want to have the crazy color dynamics. I might want some texture in it, or maybe not. You know, there's lots of different ways you can work with it. But now I know how to deal with brushes. So now I'm going to erase my sketch layer just by hitting Command-All, so Command-A, and delete. But I'm still on my sketch layer. I see the white paper underneath. And now I'm going to start sketching. But I'm going to first show you this method, which some of you might like, which is much more painterly. Some painters like to start with a charcoal drawing or a pencil drawing. Some painters just like to start with paint. So this is the kind of digital painting that's shown with the Kiwi, just starting with paint. And because I'm on the brush tool and I'm at an opacity of 100%, I can just hold Option down and it will change my brush tool automatically to a paint dropper, and I can steal local color from my resource. So let's just paint. If I want a bigger brush, I can make it bigger. Remember, it's pressure sensitive to scale. So if I want to cover a lot of ground quickly, I'm going to paint in with this brush. Maybe I don't want the texture turned on. And so what do? I go to my brush options, which is the paint can there, and turn off texture. And you see how that will give me a slightly softer edge there. And because this isn't digital coloring, this is digital painting, I can go ahead and start painting with different tones right away. I can find highlights, put them in, and just paint. You know, sketch with paint. It's a nice way to kind of sample the colors from your reference. Like the pinks of her cheeks. Those go pretty dark. And the shadows, those go pretty dark. Right? Her teeth. Her hair. Highlights in her hair. So you can see it can start taking form really roughly, blocking this out. Now what's the problem with speed painting this way with just shapes? Well, when you're doing caricatures for sure and likeness, I can get something that looks like a human face, you know, painting this way. And if I want to be more precise, I would go to a smaller brush and maybe zoom in a little bit. But I'm not going to get likeness. I'm not going to get her to look particularly like the person she is, the unique individual. But that's how you would start with speed painting. And it can be really fun and really gestural and really loose. And I could pick colors of my own as well instead of just stealing them. But I like stealing them from the reference and then selecting from myself, right? Like all these different colors that we found. And this is looking kind of like a pastel drawing, like a rough underpainting at this point, and it looks very cartoonish. This would be good for kind of Disney concept art, right? But it doesn't really make a compelling caricature yet. But that is one way you might want to start. It depends on what you are painting. And if I'm doing animals or something, sometimes this is a fun way to get a lot of gesture to them. I'm actually going to keep doing this a little bit. Not so much because I think I'm going to get the likeness this way, but more so that I can arrange the composition I want and keep it loose, not try to be too strict about it. So her face is kind of like that. His face is kind of broader like this. Let's get some highlights in there. His skin is a little bit redder. Hers has a little bit more yellow in it. It's good to kind of note those things. Of course, I'm limited by the single reference I have. And at this point, I can kind of rearrange. This is all on my sketch layer, my different elements. So if I want him to be a little bit higher up in the caricature, like so, I can do that very easily. And just have fun. You'll notice that even when I steal from the whites, there is a color there. So the first step to speed painting is basically getting rid of all the white, filling it in with your own choices. But this is without any kind of sketch. It's painting directly with shapes. Now, if I'm working really fast on something, this will always be the way I start because it gets you right into it. It doesn't allow you to be timid, especially using kind of a big brush here really boldly. The great advantage of digital painting over traditional painting to me is that you're not paying for the paint, you're not paying for the paper. There's no reason to be timid. You can be experimental. You can be as bold as you like. The only downside would be not pushing yourself, not taking advantage of it being digital. So something like that. Highlights in the hair. Even dark hair will have highlights, will have transitions. Ears and noses tend to be a little bit more red than the other parts of the face. And I'm also kind of understanding light sources here. As I steal color, I'm seeing kind of what side the light is coming from. What's the shadow side, what's the light side. Now let's put the kids in there. And I'm not too worried about my edges and my edge control because all of this is just like on a canvas, keeps getting treated. So I'm all on one layer. I'm not making a different layer for each person or anything like that. Because I'll continuously be kind of refining edges and repainting certain aspects. I have the head tilted here of this boy, and well, I'm just setting it up and working on my composition because I don't want to be a slave to the photo. The photo has way too much like boring space in the middle that I don't want to have in my finished thing. So there he is. It's hard with this big brush to not give him huge bushy eyebrows. Maybe I don't need eyebrows yet. Okay, so at this point it's very easy just to select that head and use what I know from compositing, transforming, rotating, placing, overlapping. Scaling, shifting, doing all that stuff. So maybe he goes right there. And then the older child, move him down a little bit more to make him look like the youngest. And I'll sketch the older child over here. Block out big shape for his head. Can't make him look short. Let's see, he comes up to about here actually. So let's Let's see, where should I put him? So I want to put him maybe off to the side a little bit here. Give some tilt. Nice base color. And you can see all of these speed painting steps, just kind of big flat colors and then doing highlights and shadows within those and slowly making your brushes smaller and more refined. I think of it really as finger painting. Start with finger painting. So when I do this kind of work, portraits and caricatures traditionally, like hand-drawn or painted in watercolor or oil or acrylic, I'll usually do some trial sketches to introduce myself to the subject matter just in my sketchbook. But one of my favorite things about digital painting is I can do all those trial sketches just here as part of the project. Because it's not like I'm committed to any of these marks. It just introduces me to the subject matter. And I'm painting at 100% opacity, so I am not, massaging what I've done. I am boldly putting down marks just like I would in a sketchbook. I like the difference of this bow tie being at an angle versus this one being straight on. That's nice. And I like that his head's at a different angle than his torso. It's kind of a nice pose. So I'll get that line down. So he's like that, she's like that. And this is the most kind of rigid pose. I want him to feel a little bit more natural. So I have him at that slight angle. All right, so that's my rough composition of my caricature. It's all on a sketch layer. I'm going to take it, select it all, and maybe scale it down a little bit or move it around to fit within my format a little better. So I have room at the edges to improve it, to shape it, to define it. All right. And now the next step would be to be more analytical about it. So this just becomes my kind of rough background. So I'll call this my sketch shape layer. And next, I will actually use their heads from the reference, and I'm going to be diagramming their faces. Okay, so I'm going to make a duplicate of the different photo references' heads, and then using my compositing skills, to fit them into the composition I've already designed. The worst mistake that amateurs make in doing caricatures is they only use one photo, and I'm guilty of that right now, but they let that photo dictate exactly the composition of what they're drawing. The pose, the lighting, everything. And I don't want that. I did a sketch first that kind of dictates the composition. I'm even changing the direction of some people's heads. But now I want to actually look at their likeness. What things do I need to recognize? Okay. So I'm going to line them up there. Next person. Grab his head, duplicate it.